I enjoy the opportunity to follow the member because I felt that his contribution, unlike the minister's, was actually intelligent and reasoned, and I felt that he went through the issues. Well, the member wasn't actually, I think, listening to the minister when she said, in response to a very serious issue that was raised with me, a constituent who said to me, and I didn't know he was a constituent when he came up to me, he said that I'd given a good speech because it had made him think about how this legislation will affect his 11-and-a-half-year-old son. And he looked at his 11-and-a-half-year-old son and said, at 12, this child would be subject to the jurisdiction of the youth court. And it just made him think. And so the minister got up in response to the questions that I asked out of that and said she'd been rung by people who said I'd given a bad speech. Well, frankly, I don't care what anyone else says about the quality of the speech. What I'm interested in are the issues that the previous speaker raised. And I think that the previous speaker actually nailed it when he really isolated what were the differences between Labour and National on this. And that is this, and nobody has mentioned this, and the minister continues to refuse to do this in her incapacity to deal with the fact that these are children. Does anyone seriously in their right mind, and I hope Chester Borrows takes some further calls on this bill, does anyone in their right mind think that these children end up committing these terrible offences in isolation from the environment and within which they live? Does anyone think that? Does anyone seriously think that the lives of these children have somehow been perfect and all of a sudden they go out and commit a horrendous crime, like intentionally wounding with intent to injure? That's one of the offences that we've got. Does that happen in isolation of the family, of the parents? Does it happen in isolation of a community? Does it happen in isolation from the whānau, the iwi or the hapu? I mean, does it happen all by itself? No, it doesn't, and even the ACT member will agree with me on that. What we're talking about is that in 1989, New Zealand created a world-leading mechanism for addressing some of these most serious issues. And in fact, there is an element of what we know now that would make me want to rewrite the opening words of the Children, Young Persons and Their Families Act. It says an act to reform the law relating to children and young persons who are in need of care or protection or who offend against the law. Because I think that all of the children who offend against the law have care and protection issues. Not all of those with care and protection issues end up as offenders, but there is a connection. And I remember when I first became a Member of Parliament, a number of issues arising around practices whereby there were youth justice facilities on the same site as the care and protection site. And the member opposite will recall those in Christchurch. And there were serious issues because under the law they cannot mix. And the irony that the social workers and the managers of those centres talked to me about was that they said, this is crazy. They are the same children. They come in as care and protection cases and then they come back as offenders under the youth justice provisions. The connections between care and protection and youth justice cannot be minimised, and that's what's happened with this debate. The previous member did not even mention the fact that these children have a right under our law to have the care and protection of their families, of their parents and of their communities. And what has happened terribly wrong. So let's look at some of the care and protection issues. Whether they're likely to be harmed physically, emotionally or sexually, ill-treated, abused or seriously deprived, that their development or physical or mental or emotional well-being is being or likely to be impaired or neglected. All of these issues lie behind these children. They don't end up being offenders simply because they've grown up to be offenders. There are issues that lie behind them, and they are always always, every time about care and protection, Mr.
Mr. Chairman.